How many nuclear plants are in Canada, and where are they located? There are 434 nuclear power reactors worldwide, which produce 11.94% of global electricity. In Canada, there are 19 nuclear power reactors operating at 4 generation stations. 3 stations, Pickering, Darlington, and Bruce, are located in Ontario, and the 4th station, Point Lepreau, is in New Brunswick. Nuclear energy supplies 16% of the electrical power in Canada. Canada is one of the largest producers of uranium. 5 mining and milling sites are located in Saskatchewan. McArthur, Cigar Lake, and Rabbit Lake are the operating mines, and Key Lake and McLean Lake are the milling sites. Refining of uranium takes place at Blind River, Ontario, and conversion of uranium is done at a plant in Port Hope, Ontario. To put the number of plants into perspective globally, the US has 100, France 58, Japan has 48, and Russia has 33 reactors that are currently operable. Even as we speak, there are 72 new reactors currently under construction in 16 different countries, and 92 more reactors are planned in for the next 10 years. What are the different types of nuclear reactors? In Canada, nuclear energy is produced by the CANDU reactors. It is classified as a pressurized heavy water reactor. The CANDU reactor uses heavy water called deuterium as a moderator, and unenriched uranium as fuel. In comparison, light water reactors use uranium that has been enriched so that the U-235 makes up about 3 to 5%. With some modification, CANDU reactors are also able to use enriched uranium, mixed fuels, and thorium, which makes them ideal for nuclear weapon disposal. While recycling nuclear fuel is not practiced in Canada, it is common in other countries such as France. Advances in fuel processing allow for the recycling of spent fuel, decommissioned military-grade uranium, plutonium, and new fuels, including thorium. This recycling not only improves the efficiency of uranium fuel use, but also decreases the amount of nuclear waste and generates cost savings. The most common reactor worldwide is the pressurized water reactor. There are 6 different types of reactors: pressurized heavy water reactors, pressurized water reactors, boiling water reactors, gas-cooled reactors, light water graphite reactors, and fast breeder reactors. The different designs use different concentrations of uranium and have different moderators in the core. How much of Canada's energy comes from nuclear power? CANDU reactors supply 16% of the electricity in Canada. This is enough electricity to supply approximately 9 million households. Bruce Power is the largest facility and can generate almost 55 billion kilowatts per hour per year and powers 4.9 million homes in Canada. It is currently the largest producer of nuclear energy in the world. Comparatively, Darlington produces up to 31 billion kilowatts per hour per year, powering 2.7 million homes, and Pickering produces 27 billion kilowatts per hour per year and powers 2.4 million homes. Point Lepreau supplies 25% of New Brunswick's electricity, producing 5.5 billion kilowatts per hour per year and powers 500,000 homes. How does a CANDU reactor work? There are 4 basic steps to the CANDU reactors. Energy released from fission heats the water. The heat then boils water in steam generators to produce pressurized steam. The pressurized steam is used to power a turbine, which sends power from the generator to the grid. An outside water source cools the steam, and the water produced from condensation allows the cycle to repeat. CANDU reactors are incredibly safe. The safety components are independent from the rest of the plant, and each safety component has 3 backups. CANDU reactors have been exported to China, India, Pakistan, Romania, and South Korea. How safe is nuclear energy? Canada has made great strides in implementing and regulating nuclear safety. All regulation and enforcement of nuclear safety protocols are done by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, which operates under the Ministry of Natural Resources. The Commission enforces the Canadian safeguards created in 2000 under the new Nuclear Safety Control Act. Safety protocols in Canada include safety tests and inspections, evaluations and reporting, extensive training and screening employment requirements, and reactive policies to mitigate new risks. Further, new technologies have improved safety. The CANDU reactor used in Canada takes into account human error, equipment failure, and external pressures. In 2002, the Nuclear Waste Management Organization was established to develop a safe approach for long-term care of Canada's used nuclear fuel. Currently, all of Canada's used fuel is safely managed at storage facilities at nuclear generating stations monitored by the CNSC and the IAEA. The CNSC has been responsive to new information and risk. For example, following the Fukushima nuclear accident, 36 new actions to increase safety in response to external threats were added. Additionally, following the September 11th attacks, nuclear power plant security has been prioritized. However, despite the efforts to ensure safety, there are still areas in which it can be improved. The radiation limits set for employees in nuclear mines and power plants, set by the CNSC, is higher than those allowed for the general public, meaning these employees are at a greater risk for the adverse effects of radiation. It also puts these employees at a higher risk than what is allowed in any other industry. Safety regulation does not apply throughout all of the nuclear fuel chain, so regulation enforcement has been inconsistent. Furthermore, in the case of accidents, the risk may be extremely detrimental regardless of safety protocols in place. What are the costs of nuclear energy in Canada? Nuclear is one of the most affordable energy sources. It costs about $6.20 per kilowatt hour, while it requires high investment initially for mining and building infrastructure for processing and fuel conversion. Once these have been paid for, the costs of fuel production and maintenance remain lower than that of any other power source. Nuclear has one of the most productive energy outputs compared to other sources of energy. The energy output of 20 grams of uranium is equivalent to the outputs of 400 kilograms of coal, 410 liters of oil, and 350 cubic meters of gas. Further, nuclear energy has efficient land use even when including all steps within the fuel chain, providing 47.6 megawatts electrical per square kilometer. In other words, the entire world's electricity could be fueled with nuclear production that only covers a landmass the size of Nepal. As the world's population grows, energy sources that require less space will be advantageous in order to accommodate for the population's needs. Recent research has shown that there is a possibility of reusing nuclear spent fuel. There is currently a debate over the most effective approach for nuclear waste management, but it is important to note that these costs are already accounted for as nuclear producers are required to pay towards a trust that covers nuclear waste management. Canada is leaning towards underground waste storage for used fuel. However, this may lead to added costs if we want to reuse this fuel later. Firstly, uranium is a finite resource and will eventually need to be replaced. For this reason, the amount of financial investment required for nuclear energy may not be worth it in the long run. Secondly, the cost associated with decommissioning mines and upgrading infrastructure is extremely high and often not calculated into the cost. All future costs need to be accounted for if we hope to know the full cost effectiveness of nuclear energy. Finally, no predictions could ever account for the costs that could occur in the case of an accident, due to limits in predicting the full risk, damage, and necessary repairs. What are the effects of exposure to radiation? Radiation from nuclear power plants account for 0.07% of radiation in Canada. Scientific evidence does not indicate any cancer risk or immediate effects at doses below 100 millisieverts per year. Yet ionizing radiation is powerful enough to alter or damage cell functioning. Further, some scientists believe there is a health risk from any exposure to radiation. Stochastic effects refers to the effects caused by low-dose radiation, such as cancer. People living near power plants are exposed to small doses from radioactive particles deposited on their skin and clothes. This could result in increased health risk in the future if the affected cells are not able to fully repair themselves. Do the effects of exposure to radiation change in the event of nuclear power plant accident? When an accident takes place, the risk of radiation exposure is increased. The health effects of radiation depend on the level of radiation exposure, body part exposed, whether it is internal or external, and the time the person is exposed to the radiation without protections. It is possible for cells to completely die or become abnormal temporarily or irreversibly if radiation damages both. When radiation is so high this immediately affects tissues and organs, it is referred to as acute radiation syndrome. The risk of radiation exposure associated with accidents is concerning because in Canada there are not many initiatives or adequate infrastructure to ensure preparedness and appropriate response. What is the environmental impact of emissions from nuclear energy? Emissions from the life cycle of nuclear energy are much less harmful than those of coal or natural gas power plants, and in fact are more comparable to renewable energy forms such as solar or geothermal. In the energy sector, nuclear is among the cleanest option. It generates zero CO2 emissions during production, only contributing to carbon emissions during construction and mining activities. Nuclear energy is the second largest source of low-carbon electricity in the world. Emissions of natural gas are 15 times greater than that of nuclear energy, and emissions from coal are 30 times greater. However, although they are not the biggest contributors of CO2 emissions, nuclear power plants still have to be constructed, uranium has to be mined, processed, and transported, waste has to be stored, and mines have to be decommissioned. What about nuclear waste and how is it dealt with? All nuclear reactors generate large masses of radioactive waste annually. Nuclear waste remains radioactive for thousands of years. Currently, nuclear facilities in Canada store different types of waste depending on their danger levels. Low-level waste including all cleaning tools and protective clothing that are used in facilities. Even though they are rarely touched by radioactive material, they are still considered nuclear waste and are stored in long-term storage facilities. Intermediate level waste are reactor parts including water filters that have been exposed and are radioactive. Intermediate waste is stored in containers made of radiation-blocking material such as lead. High-level waste is spent fuel. It is the fuel removed from reactors. High-level waste is stored in a pool of water for 5 to 10 years, allowing it to cool, and then placed in special storage containers composed of thick concrete steel, where the radiation level declines but still remains too radioactive to be exposed to people or the environment. What are the applications of nuclear technology? Beyond nuclear energy, nuclear technology has contributed greatly to improvements within other areas, such as health, food production, electronics, environmental protection, and aerospace and automobile technologies. In Canada, one of the most valuable applications has been in the field of nuclear medicine and health technologies through radioisotopes for diagnostic and therapeutic care. Nuclear technology can be used to detect irregularities within tissues and organs, which has been useful in diagnosis of disease. Types of nuclear diagnostic tests include X-rays, PET scans, CT scans, and others. Radioisotopes can also treat cancer as radiation can be used to destroy cancerous cells and tumors. However, there are many risks associated with this type of medicine and how it is used. The risk associated with radiation exposure is increased, especially with the trend of medical professionals overusing this technology while not fully disclosing to patients the risk, radiation levels, and the effects of repeated exposure. Radiation dose is cumulative, so the probability of adverse outcomes increase as people repeatedly undergo nuclear diagnostic tests and treatment.